No. I played enough gacha games to know how this goes. We like the game for the first few hours, get invested in the storylines, and then the gacha mechanics ruin everything. Nice try, game, but I'm one step ahead of your— oh wait, it's a factory building resource game. Oh, this is gonna end badly for me, isn't it? Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. A few weeks ago, I got an email from Arknights Endfield asking if I would be able to challenge run their game. And if I'm being honest, I was pretty skeptical at first. Sure, my brain is broken enough that I could come up with something, but after a while the gacha genre starts to feel like the same game with a different skin, you know? But they must have done their homework, because they were quick to ask me if I liked automation factory games. To which I responded, so yeah, needless to say, they caught my attention with that one. And as you'll see later, I was not disappointed with what I found. But if we're gonna play a gacha game, there has to be some level of challenge. And what better challenge than the question that's on every new player's mind? Can you beat Arknights Endfield without spending any money? Now, before we get too far into the video, a big thank you to Arknights Endfield for sponsoring today's challenge run. They were very cool about me making an entire video about the best ways to not give them money, which is always good to see. And if you decide that you like what you see after watching today's video, you can use my link in the description and pinned comment down below to download the game for yourself. They're currently celebrating their half anniversary with the Homecoming update, which added 2 new areas, a new boss, 2 new characters, a whole bunch of new mechanics that we'll cover later, quality of life improvements, and so much more. And to celebrate their first 6 months, logging in during the Homecoming event will give you a 6-star weapon and a minimum of 35 free pulls. So there's no better time to play, whether you're a new player or an old hand. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. We are the Administrator, a mysterious figure with a black face mask and a hefty helping of amnesia. Alright, let's see what we're dealing with here. Oh, we might be a tad underdressed for this particular assignment. You know what, it's fine. Everything's fine. Time for the tutorial. Not a whole lot to see here. Pretty much everything you're used to when it comes to video games. All the core elements are here. Run, jump, dash, dodge, all that good stuff. But then we get introduced to some of the factory building aspects of the game, like the zipline. You know how faster run speed is locked behind specific characters in other gacha games? Yeah, not a thing here. If you want to go fast, just build ziplines wherever you want to go. You can even use them to skip over difficult terrain if you plan them right, which is a huge time saver for areas you find yourself traveling through frequently. In regards to combat, it's very intuitive. Use the attack button and you'll hit your enemies. Continue to press or hold it, and you'll attack in a multi-hit combo. A well-timed dodge will avoid any enemy attacks coming your way, and doing so will help recharge your skill meter on the bottom of the screen. Each bar indicates one use of your character's skill, so be sure to keep an eye on that so you can dish out the most damage possible. The more you use your skills and damage your enemies, the more your ultimate meter charges. And when fully charged, you can do a cinematic attack with devastating results. But more on that later. For now, it's time for the tutorial boss, Arknights. Jesus wept, someone's been eating their Wheaties. Well, go big or go home, I suppose. The boss is pretty simple as far as mechanics go. Big Fist comes down, you dodge the attack, then counterattack as hard and as fast as you can. Do enough damage to the hands, and they'll break, bringing the boss down to your level. Of course, you'll have to deal with minions and giant lasers before then, but this is great practice for the kind of multitasking you'll have to do during fights later in the game as well. Deciding which enemy to take out first is crucial, since some enemy attack patterns are much more deadly than others. In any case, I break one arm, then the other, and with both arms broken, Arknights falls to the ground, and we are free to unleash a flurry of attacks against its core. And after enough damage, we reach phase 2. The boss regenerates its arms, and starts some sort of countdown. An ominous ticking starts in the background, and it becomes painfully obvious that we aren't strong enough to win this fight in time. And after failing to destroy all of Arknights' swords, it emits a blast, killing us all. Well damn, that was a short game. Hope you all had fun watching the video, and oh wait, never mind, we got better. From what I can gather, the Administrator acts as the seat of life from time to time. World-ending things happen, the Administrator appears and resets the balance, then disappears for years at a time. Mysterious mysteries and all that. The only thing we know for sure is that the Administrator is one of the core players of Endfield Industries, a corporation that is currently trying to save life on the planet Talos 2. Enfield's HQ is aboard a spaceship that orbits the planet, the Dijang, and is currently home to multiple humanoid species that, did that man just pull off sunglasses to reveal another pair of sunglasses? But yeah, Spaceship HQ, planet in trouble below. Easy enough. Which brings us to Chapter 1, Valley 4. After receiving multiple distress signals, we head on down to Enfield's foothold on Talos 2 with our Endfield partner, Perlica, a caster that utilizes lightning to damage and stun enemies. We get a bit more practice under our belts with combat, and learn that if we break an enemy's poise by attacking it repeatedly, it'll leave them staggered, which lets us do a very powerful opportunity attack. We also learn about combo skills. The actual trigger depends on each individual character, but if the trigger is met, each character in your party can do a special combo attack. Very important when considering team composition. But we'll worry about that when we've got more characters. Right now, we need to break that anchor, a strange rocky spire that spawns Angeloi. Or we would, if I didn't get immediately distracted. As with any factory-based adventure, we can gather natural materials. In this case, a buckflower bush. Collect enough, and you can then craft them into healing items, which you can use as much as you want outside of combat, and in limited quantities during. Needless to say, we'll be scaling the hell out of this process later on, but for now we can just craft these items in our backpack. And with the anchor's core destroyed, the Angeloi of the area are no more. But another type of enemy still lingers. The bandits of Talos 2, the Bone Crushers, aka Landbreakers, aka Pipe Faces. That getup is certainly a choice. Not a good one, mind you, but a choice. So begins our first mini-boss encounter. Not a whole lot to say about these guys, honestly. Just attack until they die, and if you see a large red circle forming, use a skill to interrupt their attack and give yourself an opening for even more damage. Easy game for babies. So let's move on to bigger and better things, shall we? We unlock another character, Chen, the dual-blade swordswoman who focuses on DPS and lifting enemies into the air, and finally gain access to the world at large. These teleport points act as safe zones, letting you heal to full, access your factory storage, and turn in Oraline, a collectible that you can find throughout the world that will give you experience, resources, and additional stamina, if you collect enough of it. Needless to say, I immediately got sidetracked from the story mission and went off collecting resources, ranging from plants to animals to minerals, and also went out of my way to find a good number of collectibles around the map, which give you resources that you can use to level up your characters, weapons, and skills. And with these goodies now mine, I can start leveling up my characters properly. But we'll need enough resources for an entire team if we're going to maximize our combat potential. And don't even get me started on crafting all of their gear. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the AIC factory comes in. Look at her, primed and ready for automation. My fingers are just twitching with anticipation. I gather up some more resources from around the map, then get to work making the first pieces of my factory. The refining unit takes raw materials and, refines them, which will in turn allow for bigger and better machines, as well as let us repair objects around the world that are important for puzzles or even missions. I also found the difficult combat encounters while exploring. These crisis events are found sporadically around the map, and tend to spawn max level enemies that have a lot of health and do massive damage if your team isn't maxed out as well. You can still defeat the encounters with an undeveloped team if you're patient, and the rewards are well worth the effort, but it might be a bit tough if you do. But why only have 3 party members when we could have 4? Say hello to Snowshine, the polar bear snowboarder who wields a greatsword. She was a free unlock from an event, which is great, because not only is she a fantastic character that can block enemy attacks and heal your party, but I also found a 5-star greatsword earlier, and she's the only one in my party who can take advantage of it. But with my party now full, we're going to need a way to bring in resources so we can start upgrading them properly. A portable mining rig should fix that problem nicely. Much easier than whacking stones with my sword, this little buddy forever mines rocks, letting you wander off and come back to collect them whenever you're available. We also unlocked a shredding unit, and I'm very excited about this one, because when you put originium ore into it, it creates a powder. A powder that repairs these here barrels and lets me create explosives. And I don't think I need to explain why I like those. These bombs not only let you explore new parts of the world and solve puzzles for goodies, but can even be thrown at enemies at the start of fights to give you a surprise attack. Unfortunately, you can't throw bombs once the fighting starts, so a bombs only run isn't possible. But at least we can use them for something other than world exploration. And yes, you can craft portable bombs that don't require pre-placed barrels. And yeah, I immediately made hundreds of them. What do you think I am? I keep pushing through the main mission, solving Tetris puzzles, crafting some equipment to help keep my party alive, and finding additional characters along the way. At this point in the game, I fell into a rhythm. Explore, kill enemies, level up my account, and unlock new gear templates that we can work towards crafting to upgrade my team. Combine that with the fact that we get more factory bases as the story goes on, and any grinding we did in the past becomes non-existent. You'll love to see it. Anyway, I build a bunch of defense structures to protect my bases from enemy hordes, then meet the big bad of the game, Neferith, the spooky lizard lady who has 2 voices overlapping, which means she's definitely evil. And while she doesn't stick around to play with us, she does send in the actual first boss of the game, Rodan. I said Rodan, not Radon. Don't get excited. Phase 1 is just a beat 'em up. Do damage, dodge damage, or, get hit by every attack. Whatever floats your boat. Phase 2, however, is a different story. Part of his attacks are massive AoEs, where you'll have to hide behind cover to avoid getting hit. And the others are flamethrowers, where you have to continuously dodge out of the way while he spins in a circle. Do enough damage though, and he'll topple pretty quickly. And just like that, that's the first boss dead. 1 boss down, 5 more to go. But enough about that. Let's get back to the factory. Or rather, the wacky waving inflatable tube man. Placed all over the map, finding these will give you AIC points. Points that can then be used in the factory research tree to unlock new machines, like better drills. Better drills that not only can mine higher quality minerals, but also teleport said minerals back to your factory without you having to collect them. Which I then feed through the refinery into a gearing unit, and in turn make the resource I need to craft higher tier gear. It's all coming together. Now for those of you thinking, man, placing factory equipment down sure looks awkward, you're right. This third-person perspective really doesn't work with this kind of gameplay. If only there was some sort of top-down view that, oh good, there's a top-down view. That's better, much better, let's go. And with the factory side of the game more or less fully unlocked, I can finally play the game the way I want to play it. If we're going to make sure the game stays nice and easy, I need to upgrade my character's gear. And each piece of gear costs 50 of these CD things. Considering each character can have 4 pieces of gear, that's 200 CDs per character. Ugh, this is going to take forever. Yeah, no, I made over 6.7 thousand of the things. I just designed a factory around making them, signed off of the game for the night, and when I came back the next morning, I could fully upgrade the gear of every character I own. Am I cheating? I feel like I'm cheating. It's to the point where I'm not even looking at the in-game events. Every now and again, I'll accidentally unlock one and get some rewards, but all I'm doing is beating the main story and playing with my factory, and my characters are maxed out. In fact, I've got pretty much everything I could possibly need automated. Need extra health kits? Don't go out and grab buckflower by hand, that's ridiculous. Take a single seed, throw it into a planter machine, create 2 buckflowers, then grind up one while replanting the other. Infinite health kits. Need more money? Sure, no problem. Just rework the factory so that it outputs refined originium by the ton, then sell all that originium to the locals for tens of thousands of credits. Money problem solved. And you can even improve the exchange rate by sticking one of your characters at the base to help out, or permanently increase their output by playing a tower defense minigame, which is actually a really fun puzzle and distraction from the main quest. In fact, the only time I felt like the game was actively impeding my progress was during a few story missions in Chapter 1, where I was required to be the correct account level. Which, okay. I guess I was a bit too focused and didn't do enough side quests. Maybe I should, oh wait, I can automate that too. See this crisis event? It not only gives you experience for your characters and weapons, but it also gives you account XP. And for the low cost of your sanity, no seriously, that's what the resource is called, you can replay the crisis event over and over again. And spending sanity is actually part of your dailies, which means you can net thousands of XP if you do this. But why do I think this is automated and not grinding? Well, to answer your question, is it really grinding if all I have to do is start the event and then set my controller down? Because to me that sounds like automated XP. In fact, the only thing in this entire game that isn't automated is the rare resources. Found in specific locations around the game, they regrow at a slow rate, and you'll need them to promote your characters, skills, and weapons to their next tier, unlocking new max levels. But if you're exploring the world, you'll find these rare resource gardens by the dozens, and if you can't be bothered to visit them, you can grow these resources on the Dijang once you've gotten far enough along in the main questline. Hell, you can even have the Dijang automate weapon and character XP drops for you if you can't be bothered to do the dailies. It takes longer than normal, unless you upgrade your ship, but still. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Arknights Endfield did exactly what it said it would do. It gave me a factory, and asked me what I wanted to build, and it didn't withhold the keys to the kingdom. But with my team more or less maxed out, the rest of the story missions are kind of a blur. TLDR, we need to find Neferith and kill boatloads of enemies along the way. A task I do quite well, if I may say so myself. She's right behind me, isn't she? Time for the next boss, Triagalos. This boss isn't hard when you break it down into parts. It has several attacks that can be interrupted, so try to keep a skill primed and ready for that. And so long as you're paying attention to the boss's movements, you can tell when its attacks are coming and dodge accordingly. Bring its health down to 0, and it'll enter phase 2, where it'll charge up an AoE the size of the arena that does major damage if you don't reach a safe zone in time. So, make sure you do that. It also summons in minions and temporary trap terrain, and even has a large ranged attack that is easy enough to avoid if you're moving, but creates shockwaves you either need to dodge through or jump over. Finally, a worthy opponent. No more games for babies, we're fighting for our lives here. And don't worry, Triagalos lives up to its name and has a third phase, where it turns invisible and launches volleys of plasma at you whenever it decloaks. Hope your dodge game is on point, because you'll need it if you're going to make it through the salvo. But if Dark Souls has taught me anything, it's to dodge towards your enemy and through their attacks, because if you dodge offensively, there's very little your opponent can do when you stab them in the back. But enough is enough. My factories are hungry, and your body should provide them with a good amount of fuel. Moving right along, the next boss is the Marble Ankylomorai. The first phase consists of defeating several marble tendrils that protect the main form, which isn't overly difficult so long as you pay attention to more than just the limb in front of you, while the second has the marble becoming more human in shape. Well, minus the whole 6 arms thing. This phase is a lot simpler, since all you have to do is focus on the big incoming attacks and dodge them as they come at you. Sometimes they're ranged, sometimes they're melee, but they're all pretty well telegraphed. Well, aside from phase 3. At this point, the boss goes aerial and starts doing rapid swooping attacks. And also a giant AoE blast that you're supposed to jump over, but it's a bit hard to time if you're not ready for it. This is why we have a healer. But after only a few minutes, that's the Marble Angela Morai defeated. You know the drill by now. Research new factory upgrades, research how to make new resources, revamp the factory to make way too much of that resource, because hyper-focusing on one thing is what I do and what I like. And with all of that done, we move on to Chapter 2, Wuling. Taking place in a completely different biome and map, we've got several new mechanics to play around with. Oh hey, it's Neferuth. What you doing? Evil villain stuff? Ardashir and Neferuth boogie back to the ether, and we get to face off against the new Angeloi of this biome, the Blight Tide. To be completely honest, they're not much harder than the fodder enemies of the last chapter. There's a couple variants that make things a bit difficult, like this one that provides a shield for its allies, but a little situational awareness and some upgraded gear will get you through. There's a lot of new mechanics here too. We'll be using water to activate machines, dealing with an assortment of new puzzle types, and overall just doing a lot of water-based physics puzzles. So get your thinking cap on. We even get our own personal water gun. It feels kind of unnecessary if I'm being honest. We've also got a new cast of characters to unlock. The only ones I hope to get are Tong Tong, the pirate leader, who is a very powerful gun user with a strong AoE skill that hits a lot of enemies at the same time, and Mifu, the no-nonsense captain of the guard, who has a tendency to punch your problems away. What I would give for a fist brawler character. Neither of them are automatic unlocks though, so we'll just have to cross our fingers on that one. In any case, welcome to Wuling proper, bustling city amongst the waves and constantly under attack from the Blight Tide. So much so that they installed a tower defense system around the perimeter. Seems like it's working pretty well. However, the city needs a resource called Shiranite to power their city and its defenses. And that's where we come in. With the city leader's approval, we're granted a space just outside the city to build a factory. And oh, would you look at that, an entire new factory tech tree to mess around with. This one is more water-based than the Valley 4 version. We'll have to do some exploration though, since we're gonna need more wacky waving inflatable tube men to unlock the factory upgrades. And once we do, we can now build a Forge of the Sky, which takes materials and converts them into Shiranite, which we can then use in our squirt gun, removing the Blight Tide that contaminates the area. Just like last time, there's not much to say about the missions and enemies of the game. My current team is very good at creating bursts of damage, so unless an enemy has a way to break my team composition, it's only a matter of time before we win. Which brings us to the hardest boss fight we've had so far, Ruan Yi. A very beefy boss that hits incredibly hard, you have to play it careful. He has several AoEs and large blast attacks, and all of them will do thousands of damage to you if you get hit. In fact, I think this is the first time I've lost a character in the middle of a boss fight. Less than halfway into the fight, I lost the administrator, which really sucks because she was my strongest character by far. Even worse, the party composition is all goofed now, since I can build up status effects on the boss, but I can't rip them off for extreme damage. Guess I should have swapped between characters a bit more to help even out the damage we were taking. But after several minutes of struggle, we're able to take him to 0, and kick him into phase 2. This isn't going to end well, is it? Thankfully, this phase is less about a full frontal attack, and more about dodging and collecting the Shiranite spheres. Do that enough times, and he'll get stunned, letting you dish out large chunks of damage in the process. And despite things getting really messy, we managed to pull out a victory. Sheesh, if this is how tough the bosses are going to be, we're going to need a little extra oomph to... Yes. Yes. Yes! As expected, Mifu is my favorite character by far. She uses a great sword, but swings it around very quickly so it's not too slow for my usual playstyle, and her skills suck enemies towards her and then unleash a flurry of fisticuffs. Very happy with that particular unlock. And just in time, too, because we're going up against the penultimate boss, Neferuth herself. I don't have a whole lot to say about this boss, actually. I mean, look at this. Look at her health bar. I mean, sure, she has a lot of ranged attacks with wonky hit patterns that you'll need to dodge through, but it's nothing we haven't dealt with before. I'm actually a bit disappointed. Even when she reaches phase 2 and turns into a dragon, because of course she does, we're still taking absolute chunks out of her health bar. I think I missed a mission or two that would have increased the difficulty of the enemies. I didn't really care at the time, because I thought it would only make the Overworld enemies harder and give better rewards, but maybe that's true of the bosses too? I'm not sure. There was a moment where she captured all of my teammates and anchors, and I had to desperately hack away at them to free them while dodging a series of attacks, but outside of that, and some attacks I couldn't interrupt easily because none of my party members are ranged fighters, it only took a few minutes to bring the dragon to its knees, ending in the most dramatic way possible with a giant Originium-infused sword straight through the heart. Which brings us neatly to the new content from the 1.4 update. As to be expected, this update brings a lot of new things to the table. There's new weapons to collect, like this Farsight sword, new story beats that give us a bit more information about the administrator, but also demand even more questions than we had before, and a renewed focus on something called
the Very Large Rift.
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 Sorry, can you repeat that? I wasn't paying attention. But not only do we get a new plot point, we also get 2 new areas. The first being Yinglung Pass. This time around, we're going up against Blight Shades, remnants of the people who died 10 years ago during the Exclusion Zone disaster. And we're not alone. This portion of the campaign centers around Arcane, the Technomancer. Oh, and for those of you who are familiar with the story, it looks like Ardashir will also be playing a role as well. They've got him locked up in the Magneto cage, but things are not always what they seem. I'll leave it vague since I haven't really bothered to cover the story up to this point, but as a quick aside, the plot in this game is actually quite good. There are parts that are a bit too vague sometimes, but if this expansion is anything to go off of, it seems like we're slowly getting more information sent our way as the story develops. In any case, let's get moving. Our first goal is to reignite the Balepire Towers. This entire region is stationed over a void, so we'll be crossing ink bridges to get from location to location, occasionally fighting ghostly enemies along the way. Looks like it's not just humanoids that died and were trapped here. There's also several new resources to collect as well, one of which is Talosite, but unlike other resources, this one isn't used in production. It's used to unlock emotes, gear templates, and decorative items for your ship. Just something to give a bit more flavor to your account. There's also new puzzle types, like this Kaleidograph puzzle. Pretty simple really. Just pick the design that stands out from the rest. Not particularly difficult, but every now and again, it took me a few extra seconds to realize what I was supposed to be looking for. But with the Balepire Towers lit, we can begin a ritual that will allow us access to the Very Large Rift. Naturally, the ghosts of the area have no interest in letting us complete the process, but luckily for us, my fists and sword have ghost-busting properties. It got a little hectic there for a minute, but nothing we couldn't handle in the long run. And with the ritual complete, the Shirenite Nexus we brought along with us enhances the tower's abilities, and we're able to force our way through the barrier up ahead. What's more, we've unlocked the ability to use personal device slots. New to this expansion, there are certain items we can collect and craft that will have passive effects when put in a personal device slot. We've also unlocked a whole new portion of the AIC factory tree. The Valley 4 tree focused on physical materials, and the Wooling tree was all about liquids. Any guesses to what the 1.4 tree is about? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. Gases. The answer is gases. Why, what did you say? There's also new factory components that can convert objects from solid to liquid to gas. So there's a lot of factory fun to be had. But more on that later. For now, it looks like Wooling has been very quick to put the Shirenite we've been gathering at our factories to good use. With this portable bridge, as well as the Shirenite Nexus we've been carrying around, Wooling hopes they can finally close the Very Large Rift and eliminate another one of the looming threats on their doorstep. Which brings us neatly to the next new area of the update, the North Wooling Exclusion Zone. We've heard tale of the disaster that struck all of Talos 2 10 years ago, but only in stories. Now, we get to see the devastation for ourselves. But it won't be easy. The entire zone is covered in a blight miasma, a dense fog that can only be inhaled for short bursts before becoming lethal. Our only hope is to establish pillars along the way, and destroy the sources of the miasma as we go. Oh yay, a new gadget! This time we get the Arrow Salvager. Allowing us to manipulate large objects found around the new maps, using it is essentially a physics puzzle, where you have to evenly distribute the weight so that the balloons can lift the object straight up. Any objects we salvage like this are turned into Ourobarrel, which you can use to unlock new characters. So that's exciting, but I don't need new characters. I need to head into the miasma, and as you can see, we've only got 300 seconds to get from safe point to safe point. Previous expeditions into the miasma were able to set up small safe zones along the route, but from what Arcane tells us, it may have cost more lives than it was worth. Ooh, this salvage requires Arrow Salvager 2 or better, which means we're not only upgrading our character's equipment and armor this go around, but we're also going to have to upgrade our devices. But we'll worry about that later. For now, we've got a not very large rift to close. Much like before, we need to hold off waves of enemies and protect the Shirenite Nexus while it does its thing. An easy task for my team. While not completely maxed out, most of my team members are 3/4 of the way to max level. Combine that with the fact that my characters just seem to work well together with the way I play, and there's very few enemies that can give me any trouble. 1 rift closed, 2 more to go. While the enemies themselves may not be challenging for me, I will say that the story beats are certainly pulling at my heartstrings a little bit more than I expected. The further we get into the exclusion zone, the more the ghosts talk, and the more they talk, the the clearer it becomes that these are the fallen expeditions that tried to clear the miasma before us. Needless to say, as the leader of the group responsible for trying to retake the zone, Arcane isn't handling it very well. And this is where I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the talent behind the animation and voice acting teams. Last chapter, the storyline between Tong Tong and her brother actually shook me a bit. For as silly as Arknights Endfield can be sometimes, it does venture into covering some heavier topics. And even with the voice actors that don't speak English as their first language, you can tell that they're really putting their all into the lines. And that really sells me on the story that Arknights Endfield is trying to tell. Please, if you'll indulge me for a minute.
Let you hurt anyone anymore! Help me! And he's suffering!
Protect yourself.
Good God, this was supposed to challenge my mind, not my heart. But onward we must persist. We're almost there now. We just need to defeat a few more enemies and find whatever boss the new expansion has added, and we can officially say that we've beaten Arknights Endfield without spending any money. And on that note, look who I just unlocked. Arcane herself, the rare pull for this season. I didn't even have to get to the pity amount to reach her, which means the game's gacha system is either way more player friendly than I'm used to, or I've just wasted about a year of good luck on this game. Could be either one, if we're being honest. Arcane has a very interesting playstyle. She's a gunner who does nature damage, but has two different modes depending on which of her primary stats are higher. If her intelligence is higher than her will, her combo and battle skills can be used more frequently to increase her damage, making her an unstoppable powerhouse of constant DPS. But when her will is higher than her intelligence, her combo skill can be used whenever a teammate applies elemental damage to an enemy. And this combo not only reduces an enemy's nature and cryo defense, but it also adds another stack of whatever elemental damage her teammate just applied, while simultaneously imprisoning the enemy. Pretty wild stuff. But unfortunately, that sounds a bit too complicated for my playstyle. I like to keep things simple, and adding her to my roster would mean building more gear and crafting a whole new party to maximize efficiency. So while it would be cool to add a Technomancer to my party for spits and giggles, I think I'll just stick to punching everything to death. Also worth noting, if you plan on doing everything in the exclusion zone, you may need to take the time to craft all the devices that the game introduces. In the interest of time, and also to prove if any amount of grinding was necessary, I chose to forego improving my Sheerite Nexus, which means that 300-second timer runs out when I try my hand at a crisis event and end up fighting with max level enemies. Full party wipe. Yikes. Alternatively, just clear the miasma from the area and go back and do it later. Whatever floats your boat. In fact, at this point in the run, I ignored multiple upgrades that would have made the run easier and refused to max out my characters. I probably should have, but I was curious to see if the game would restrict me from the ending if I didn't complete every task it gave me. Guess we'll find out how that goes at the end of the video. Until then, we've established a Sheerite bridge and can access the very large rift. Unless the rift itself doesn't want us interfering and destroys the entire bridge. That could be a bit of a setback. Thankfully, at least Arcane survived the fall, though she's severely injured and surrounded by blight shades. Turns out, she can be a one-woman army when she needs to be. Holy crap, her movestyle's insane when it gets going. I can see why Arknight was so excited to show off this character. Highly recommend using her if she fits your playstyle. Definitely fun to play and an asset to any elemental team. For the sake of spoilers, I won't reveal what I found down in the pit, since it has a lot to do with Arcane's backstory, but let's just say it was another challenge run for Lemon's heart moment. Don't worry, I survived, but just barely. But after nearly dying of heartache, and finally upgrading Mifu to maximum as far as her skills go, we've finally arrived. Go ahead, team. I know you want to say it.
The very large rift.
Yep, that's the one. And as to be expected, the very large rift contains a very large boss. A very, very large boss. Well, everybody, this is it. The final stumbling block of the run. Alecryos. Big dude with a big sword. Seems manageable enough, so long as we keep our interrupts on point. He has plenty of ranged attacks and shockwaves, as to be expected from a boss, but he seems a little weak. I don't know, man. Maybe it's all the gaming experience talking, but I was expecting more from someone that came out of a giant spooky portal. Oh, heard me say that, did you? Well, I guess we're entering phase 2. Hopefully this version of you gives me a better challenge. I barely had time to blink before the last phase was over. Oh, doing a mirror image thing, huh? Okay, I can dig it. Or I would, if he wasn't so easy to overpower. I know I'm proud of my party composition, but this just feels ridiculous. But don't worry, there's a third phase where Alecreos uses his ultimate and turns the entire game into a bullet hell, which was pretty easy at first, but it gets more and more intense as the move goes on, eventually ending in a large burst of damage. Thank God for healers, am I right? The last portion of the battle is just as intense as you could hope for. Arrows flying every which direction, mirror images attacking from all angles, and moves like this one covering the arena in danger zones that either require perfect dodging or character skills to avoid, or this one, where the boss swirls around you like a lawnmower of death. Finally, another challenging foe. But not challenging enough. After several minutes of attacks and counterattacks, we throw everything we have at the boss for one final push. And just like that, that's Alecreos defeated. We take the very sword he wielded against us, and with the power of friendship and anime on our side, we put an end to the boss once and for all. And with that, that's Arknights Endfield beaten without spending any money. What a ride. While this type of game is outside of my normal wheelhouse, I had a great time playing it, and was pleasantly surprised in multiple ways. First off, the idea of letting players create factories and build infrastructure throughout the entire game world? Ingenious. It not only makes the act of gathering resources more engaging, but makes the player feel smart for figuring out how to get resources from A to B in the most efficient ways possible. Combine that with how the game rewards you with nearly unlimited resources, and that alone is enough to make Arknights Endfield stand out amongst a crowd of gacha games. I was initially worried that the game would use this as an excuse to hamstring players with resource requirements, but that simply wasn't the case. Even when it comes to characters and gear, it felt like the game only gently encouraged me to engage with its mechanics. For example, when I picked my party, I primarily focused on improving the character I was using, letting my other party members lag behind. As you can see here, while 2 of them are almost maxed out, the other 2 were still 20 levels below level cap, sporting below average weapons, and only having the skills I used the most maxed out. In fact, the entire party was still working with level 50 armor and equipment, and I never bothered to give them anything more than just the basic healing items, but they made it through the story just fine. Now, do I think they'd make it through all of the more hardcore challenges and events? No. But those events also weren't necessary to progress, which means they're more for players who want to engage fully with the game. Speaking of engaging with the game, you might have noticed that throughout this video, I never mentioned the cash shop. And that's because, shockingly, the game never even asked me to look at it. Don't get me wrong, it exists, and whether or not these prices are worth the rewards are going to depend on a player-by-player basis. But as someone who went in with the mindset of never spending any money, I can assure you that I never felt the need to even search the store out. The game felt fair, materials were always easy to come by if you built your factories right, and as far as I can tell, there are no resources or items blocked behind cash walls, which means spending money on the game is more about supporting the developers and progressing through the game faster than normal. Which, for those wondering, I think I finished the full main storyline the game has to offer at this point in time in about 30 hours. Give or take a few hours due to getting sidetracked by optional missions and getting way too into the factory system. I guess what I'm trying to say is not only can you beat Arknights Endfield without spending any money, but it's not even unreasonable to do so. And in today's attention and financial economy, that means a whole damn lot. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did making it. As a reminder, you can download Arknights Endfield for free using my link in the description and pinned comment down below. And if you start playing sooner rather than later, there's all sorts of rewards waiting for both new and returning players alike to celebrate the Arknights half anniversary. Considering there's so much more content that I left out of this video, you should absolutely give it a look if you're interested. But as for me, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.